Hello, everybody. After a whole lot of talking about it, we're actually finally doing it. It's time for the first edition of our mailbag show. Now, like I've been talking about, I want to incorporate you guys into the conversation as much as possible. So please leave any questions you have in the comments below. Let us know if you enjoy the show. If you don't enjoy the show, like it. If you enjoy it, dislike it. If you don't enjoy it, just please let us know. Would love to hear what you guys think about it. Would love to keep it going if you guys enjoy it. So again, let us know what you think. Without further ado, we'll get right into it. I'm just going to be answering your questions at random based on this wheel. I actually have all ready to go here. Boom. Um, I gathered all these questions on Twitter earlier. Oh, not on the screen yet. On Twitter earlier. Please, I'll grab them from the comment section of this YouTube video this time around. I'll also grab them from Twitter and wherever else. So if you have a question you want to include it in the mailbag, just tweet it at me, leave it here, and I will make sure to add it to the mix. All right, so let's do a spin. Tried to do our first episode last week, but the questions were largely about Jahdae Barron and RJ Harvey's contract situation, and it immediately became outdated after I recorded it. This one will be a little more evergreen, though. At R Sanchez 94, Sanchez SNCHEZ 94 on Twitter asks, who will be the Broncos number 2 and number 3 wide receivers this season? Now in the room, for those that don't know, you've got Sutton, Mims, Valet, and it is Valet. I saw a comment angry about that. That's the right pronunciation. But Courtland Sutton, Marvin Mims, Devon Valet, Pat Bryant, Troy Franklin, Trent Sherfield, and then a bunch of practice squad guys. Those are going to be A.T. Perry, Michael Bandy, and then the 4 UDFAs, Jerwan Newton, Joaquin Davis, Courtney Jackson, and Kyrese White. Those guys, the latter, 6 names I just listed off, probably won't do anything. It'd be surprising if the Broncos carry 7 receivers or more. And, those first 6 spots are going to be gobbled up by Sutton, Mims, Valet, Bryant, Franklin, and Sherfield. Again, the last 2 years, only 5 receivers made it onto the initial 53-man roster. So, we could see even one of those 6 cut. To get to the question at hand here, who will be the number 2 and number 3 wide receivers for the Denver Broncos this season? I think it's going to be Mims and Valet. Now, overall pass catchers, I think Evan Ingram enters the mix there. But if we're just talking receivers, I think it's going to be Valet and Mims. I don't think Bryant will do enough to crack through or break through to get the target share necessary to be that number 2 or number 3 option, because Sutton is the X. The one thing we know about this offense is that Sutton is the receiving group rather, is that Sutton is the starting X receiver and that he's the number 1 option, right? So with Bryant, he projects best either as an X, he's probably as the long-term Sutton replacement, or as a oversized slot. And he'll see some work there in the slot without doubt. But so will Ingram, so will Valet, so will Marvin Mims. So, it's going to be hard for him to get a lot of time there. I don't think he'll be able to beat out either Mims or Valet. Franklin, I mean, I'd love if he puts it all together. I'll believe it when I see it, though. I wouldn't bet on him passing up either of those guys. And then Sherfield, I think he'll be the little Jordan Humphrey this year, a better version, but kind of just a utility player. And I think he'll have a much smaller role than we saw LJH have last year. Now, as for who's number 2, who's number 3, I really think Valet is going to be the number 2 option. I think in a best case scenario, Mims takes that leap. He seizes the reins. He's able to be that Z receiver, that main primary option opposite of Courtland Sutton. But I'll believe it when I see it. That was the plan last offseason, and it didn't come close to coming to fruition. Even when he got hot down the stretch, he was playing in the slot a lot. They were, a lot of designed gadgety touches. I hope he takes that next big leap as a receiver, but again, I'll believe it when I see it. My money is on Valet right now. This isn't going to be the length of your normal podcast episode, by the way, as I'm sure you can see. These will be little 10, 15-minute chunks. So let's get another question. And thank you very much, Sanchez. R. Sanchez, I think it's, I don't know the first name off the top of my head. I'm not going to even try. Next up here, ooh, another wide receiver question. Oh, maybe not. It is another wide receiver question, just barely. Has the wide receiver room made a leap since last season? And I think that's a good question. It was an area that, right, got a lot of criticism, even from us early on in the season. It was like, ooh, it does not look like they have enough there. And they really didn't do all that much, right? Jordan Humphrey's out the door. They drafted Pat Bryant, added Trent Sherfield to the mix. But has it really improved since last season? I think a small one. I don't know if I'd say it's taken a leap. It's maybe taken a step forward last year. Sutton and Nix are going to have more established chemistry now. I think that's good. Mims, at the least, they found a role for him when he, couldn't even get on the field for the first half of the season last year. So I think that, you'll get more production out of that slot. That'll be better off. Devon Valet, hopefully he won't have a slow start because of injuries this year. So, you're maybe taking a step forward there. And then I think, you're hoping Pat Bryant and Trent Sherfield are better than what LJH and Will Jordan Humphrey and Josh Reynolds, what they gave you last year. And I think they probably will. But, is this a dramatically better room? No, I think you're banking on some internal development and then hitting on some signings and draft picks, which isn't, I guess and low end signings, mid-round draft picks. So I think there's a chance it's a good bit better, but I'd say it's probably more likely than not in a pretty similar ballpark to what we saw last year. Thank you, Bridger D117. I should have said that was the question from @Bridger D117 on Twitter. Next up here. This will probably be my last one for the episode. We'll do either this one and one more, or this will be the last one. @Shock Treatment, what's the plan for Jahdae Barron? Could he see any time at safety? Now, Vance Joseph said not too long ago, actually, I think it was Sean Payton talking about what Vance Joseph saw in him, but either way, that the vision for him really is at cornerback and not at safety. And I believe him, but I think very oftentimes your May or June vision for a player, not even necessarily a rookie, could be a free agent signing, could be a guy like Marvin Mims, who had a breakout last year and you're hoping he can maybe carry it on to this season. But not all those visions are going to come to fruition on every team. And some of them are right on every team, but you're going to see some of those things go awry, more likely than not. And he could easily, in my opinion, get some playing time at safety based on what happens with him in nickel defense. Or not nickel defense, excuse me, base defense. So getting to the first question here, what's the plan for Jahdae Barron? I think in nickel, he probably is the nickel corner, right? I think that's where he'll be best. He could play on the outside, maybe even, I'd say it's less likely, but he could potentially even be at safety in those looks. I think more likely than not, he'll be the nickel. I think that's the most natural projection for him. Where things get complicated, though, is that, hey, this is a top 20 draft pick. And even elite nickels, guys like Brian Branch, elite nickel, was an elite nickel coming out of Alabama, program with a lot of pedigree. He goes at the top of the second round, right? It's hard to justify taking these guys that are just sub-package players in the top 20 picks. So I think you want to justify him having a role outside of nickel and dime defense. I think you want him to stay on the field for base defense, ideally, for him to live up to that draft pedigree. So what's the vision there? Now, I think there's two paths. One, he replaces Riley Moss opposite of Pat Surtain. no shot at Riley Moss, but Barron could just be the better player now. It's kind of what we've seen the Chiefs do with Trent McDuffie when their secondary's been at their best. In recent years, it hasn't been, so he's had to be on the outside full time. But when it was at its best and he was first coming into the league, they were putting him on the outside in base defense because he's damn good. Why take him off the field? And then in nickel defense, they were moving him inside where he's best. I think that's probably the ideal plan for Jahdae Barron. Now, let's say Riley Moss beats him out. Also very possible. Riley Moss was awesome last year. You still probably want to get Jahdae on the field. And this is maybe the cleaner solution, honestly, because you're doing less positional mixing up, and Jahdae Barron projects pretty cleanly at safety. So you move him to safety. Riley Moss and Surtain are your corners. You move Barron to safety. And then you move Hufanga from safety to be one of your 3 linebackers. Now, one benefit of this is also if offenses try and mess with your personnel, run some hurry up or do some substitutions to try and get you in a bad spot. Well, ostensibly, this would make it so your nickel back 7 and your base back 7 were the same 7 players. So you wouldn't be as likely to get caught with your pants down in a situation like that. Now, the other benefit is we have questions about the depth at safety and the depth at linebacker. If you don't move Barron to safety, right, you're either going to have to put some third linebacker on the field in base, and that's, Drew Sanders or Sternad, or maybe an option you're not super excited about, right? Or you keep Barron at corner, or, again, maybe he's not even on the field in base defense. You bump Hufanga down from safety to cover up the deficiency at linebacker. And now all of a sudden, oh man, you better hope and pray PJ Locke is fully healthy and ready to go. Otherwise, you've got a problem with your safety depth. So even if Barron doesn't beat out Moss for that base defense responsibility, it might work out better, or at least cleaner for the defense, where, okay, now we can very easily move Hufanga down to linebacker, move Barron in at safety, and problem solved for our base defense look. And Hufanga at linebacker is being brought up here because he did it for San Francisco and he did it quite well. As a little added bonus, he was playing next to Greenlaw or as part of a unit with Greenlaw in that role. So, you imagine there's some added chemistry with those guys playing next to each other as part of a linebacker group. So I think, that'll bring us up to 13 minutes. That'll do it for this edition of the show. Please leave more questions below. I want to keep this going. I think it's fun to touch base with you guys midweek. I'm working on getting my training camp credentials sorted right now. And once I do, I'll add a little bit of I don't know if it'll be daily, but every other day or something like that, training camp news update breakdown, let you guys know what I'm seeing, what I'm hearing down there on the field. If you can make it or if you can't, either way, I'll have all the information you guys need. So stay tuned right here. Let's talk Broncos. We'll be back Sunday for another episode. We'll be talking about our big takeaways and observations from the first week of Denver Broncos training camp. Until then, everybody, go Broncos and leave those questions down below.